Hello and welcome to the first episode of the series Deadly Delicacies, where we'll discuss different types of food, especially within a foraging context, that are controversial regarding their edibility or their toxicity. One prime example that we just happened to come across in this quite sandy pine forest here is the yellow night mushroom. As you can see, somebody who has already been here has taken some out, so I thought this is a perfect opportunity to discuss with you this mushroom, how you can identify it, why it is controversial, why some consider it a deadly, potentially, fatal, toxic mushroom, while others say it's a choice edible. All right. So first of all, maybe let's talk about where you can find this mushroom. As I've already said before, it likes to grow in sandy pine forests, often with low nutrient soil.
Usually from September to November.
It is a mycorrhizal mushroom, so it actually needs some kind of coniferous tree, mostly pine forests, pine trees. However, when we're talking about the yellow night mushroom here, we can talk about three different species, either Tricholoma equestre, Tricholoma frondosea, or Tricholoma auratum. Basically, the only difference is which type of tree they go into mycorrhizal relationship with. However, I will just be talking about Tricholoma equestre from now on, or the yellow night mushroom. Okay, it is actually a mushroom that's found all over the northern hemisphere, especially in Western and Eastern Europe. For a long time, it was considered a choice edible mushroom. There have even been stories about this particular mushroom being reserved only for the knight class in medieval times, while the peasants had to, be happy with the lowly bovine ball-leaf mushroom, which is why it's called the yellow knight. So in America, for instance, Northern America, where it also grows, there's not really too much talk about its potential toxicity because there are no real, toxic cases so far. First of all, let's also talk about how you can identify it, and lastly, I will talk about potential toxicity. As you can see, the yellow knight, quite fittingly describes itself. It got this yellow-green cap with brown scales on top. If you turn it around, we can see it's a mushroom with gills that are also quite yellow in color. The gills attach to the stem. However, what's important, you can see that it dips down right before it actually attaches to the stem. Right here you can see it tends to dip down there. The stem is also rather white at the top and turns this green-yellow color at the bottom. Usually the sizes are somewhere between 4 to 12 centimeters in diameter. The stem around 1 to 2 centimeters in girth and 3 to 9 centimeters in length. Something that's also very typical is its smell. It tends to have a scent very faintly of wet flower. Some people say a little bit like cucumber. If you've ever smelled the St. George's mushroom, you will definitely recognize this smell. So, some other mushrooms that you could potentially confuse it with, I think the most likely look-alike would be Tricholoma sulphureum, the sulfur knight. It looks very similar, however, when you smell this mushroom, it'll smell very, very strongly like sulfur, and it's not a pleasant scent at all, to be honest. The stench is quite strong, quite overwhelming. That is also a toxic mushroom. It'll most likely give you gastrointestinal symptoms. And you could also confuse it with other Tricholoma species. However, if you actually look at the yellow coloration of the gills, you're most likely with one of the yellow night mushroom species, most likely Tricholoma equestre. You could also potentially confuse it with a death cap, the Amanita phalloides mushroom. However, you will see Tricholoma equestre does not have a ring. Amanita phalloides will have the partial veil and also have the universal veil here at the bottom like a vulva, plus the gills will also be white. One thing they have in common, Tricholoma equestre also have white spore print, by the way. So now let's talk about a little bit why this mushroom is so controversial. So for a long time it was actually considered a choice edible mushroom. It was sold on markets both in Northern America and in Europe. However, in around 2001, a French study has shown that 12 cases of people eating this mushroom have ended up with rhabdomyolysis, which is basically a breakdown of certain skeletal muscle cells, and could potentially end up in death. This is also what happened to 3 of these people who actually had rhabdomyolysis after eating this mushroom. So it should be quite a clear cut that this is a deadly toxic mushroom, right? Well, here's the thing, actually. Some people are still not sure about this. Some people are still debating it. And if you look at some maps, for instance, this particular map here from a Polish study actually shows that in Portugal it is still considered an edible mushroom. In most of Western Europe it's considered toxic mushroom, while in Eastern Europe it's still considered choice edible. And one study that actually really took a look at everything, all the previous studies, was a Polish study from 2018 by Piotr Rzymski and Piotr Klasimski, or Klaniszki. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name right now, it's not really at the top of my head. What they did, they actually looked at previous studies, and one thing they noticed is that everybody who ended up with rhabdomyolysis after eating this mushroom had eaten huge portions in consecutive meals. So they ate this mushroom in like quite huge portions, and then day after day after day they ate this mushroom. Another thing they also noticed, previous studies often did studies with mice, and they actually injected some kind of the preparation of this mushroom into mice, and they have seen symptoms of rhabdomyolysis. However, yes, you might guess eating a mushroom and being injected with some kind of preparation from this mushroom might be two different things. This is also what they argued for. Plus, the last thing, many of these studies have actually not on a molecular genetic level proven that the mushroom consumed was actually Tricholoma equestre. So what they did, they invited healthy participants and they gave them around 300 grams of this mushroom, prepared it in butter and salt, and they ate it and they were all fine. So in this study, it seems that this mushroom is quite an edible mushroom. So basically what it boils down to is that this mushroom might have toxicological properties. It might be potentially lethal, however, only if you tend to eat quite big portions. There's some speculation about it that some people might be more prone to the particular toxin in this mushroom than others. So my best guess is if you want to consume this mushroom, do it in small portions. Don't exceed 200-300 grams like they did in the Polish study. And also do not eat this mushroom in many consecutive days. So take a good break in between if you want to consume this mushroom. However, like always, do this at your own risk. And if you want to eat this, also make sure that you know what you're eating, make sure that you've identified this mushroom, and enjoy outdoors. Take care. So, one last thing I would like to say before maybe the question arises, am I eating this mushroom? I have eaten it in the past, yes. However, in the country where I'm currently residing, this mushroom is actually considered extremely rare, vulnerable. So it's actually illegal to hunt for this mushroom, to gather this mushroom right here. So this is why I'm leaving these two specimens here that somebody had already picked out. I guess they also thought it's something else and just left it here. So for that, I'm just gonna leave it here. There are enough delicious mushrooms all around. All right, enjoy.